The Switch 2 is the last straw.
So the Switch 2 is out, and honestly, I wish I could say I was excited.
Wow.
I really, really wanted to be excited. Like many 90s babies, I grew up on Nintendo.
Yes.
They were my very first gaming love.
That's
Not
right.
just the games, but the feeling
I
of
had
them.
that one.
The wonder, the warmth, the way they pulled you into a world.
I had this one, 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 and I did not have... Oh, I had this one, and I had this one. Yep. Things were good. It was a good time.
And made it feel like home. Ocarina of Time was the
Yep.
one that really awoke something in me. That opening in Kokiri Forest with the Deku Tree, riding Epona across Hyrule Field, it all felt so...
Rich kid? No, you don't understand. My mom just did not... Like, she would spend money. Like, we would have $20 left. She would be in debt by $80,000. And she'd be like, you want Taco Bell? Like, yeah. She just did not give a fuck.
Massive, like a real
That was
world
it.
was tucked inside a little cartridge. And then Majora's Mask
Yep.
came along, and my little self had never felt such anxiety. That eerie moon, the ticking clock, the emotional side quests that
Yeah.
made you care so much in so little time. It was the very first game that made me feel something beyond just fun. It
Yeah.
was sad, confusing, kind of strange at times.
I could never finish. I didn't like the timeline and the time thing in Ocarina or in Majora's Mask. I liked Ocarina of Time way more, even though I think that the aesthetic of Majora's Mask is way more badass.
And very deep. It wasn't
Just
just
my
Zelda.
opinion.
I was obsessed with Super Mario 64.
I had
Running
this one.
wild through Peach's castle,
Yeah.
jumping into paintings, discovering
surprise.
every secret
Everybody had
star.
this
That
one.
game felt like true freedom. And then there were classics like Kirby's Dream Land, Yoshi's Story.
I remember I had this one. Yoshi's Story was such a piece of shit compared to Yoshi's Island. Yoshi's Island is still the GOAT undefeated best Yoshi game, and nothing else even comes close.
Donkey Kong 64, Star
Yep.
Fox, Metroid Prime.
Bro, I actually forgot all about this. So I was talking to my internet guy, and he's like, so yeah, you do streaming. So like, what games do you play? And I was like talking to him about like what games I played. And he's like, yeah, man, I've been trying to get my Nintendo 64 to work so I can play Donkey Kong 64. And then we get to talking, and I find out that this guy has played Monster Hunter so much that he has like Hunter rank 400, and he beat Art Tempered Ray Dow in like 7 or like 10 minutes or something like that. Yeah, bro, he's just out of fucking nowhere.
64,
just reminded me
Star
seeing
Fox,
that.
Metroid Prime,
I had all
all
those.
completely different and
Yep.
wonderful in their own way. And every one of them had a vibe, a soul, that
You're right,
Nintendo
yeah.
spark that made it feel like you weren't just playing, you were being let in on something very special.
was a
And
good
then
game.
my parents bought me the original
I love
DS.
how you know exactly where this game is going, or sorry, where this video is going, because she's playing Pal World in the background. Everybody knows exactly where the video is going.
Yes, and just like that, the whole thing was cracked wide open for me. That's how I found Animal Crossing Wild World, and I
had the
was
first
hooked.
Animal Crossing.
I spent hours in that little village, rearranging furniture, writing
Yep.
letters, fishing for red snappers, and visiting my best friend's town during our weekly sleepovers. Even now, just hearing the soundtrack makes me very emotional.
I guess that's what girls did. For us, it was called Halo 2 on Xbox Live and calling each other gamer words, but, you know, to each their own.
Takes me right back to those quiet, cozy afternoons
different.
after school, all curled up with that clunky silver DS
Good
with
time listening
nowhere
to
else that I needed
Nirvana.
to be. Truly the epitome of
AC/DC,
nostalgia.
Van
I didn't know
Halen.
it then, but those games were
Linkin
helping to
Park.
shape how I saw everything. Stories, characters, even myself. And for a while, it really felt like Nintendo understood how to make something that mattered. And it didn't stop there. I basically owned every major Nintendo console, starting with
still
the
do.
N64, GameCube, Wii,
Yep.
DS, 3DS,
I have that.
even the Wii U, which, in my humble opinion, was ahead of its time, by the way. But
it was
I owned
massively ahead of its time, absolutely fucking based. Iwata took a personal pay cut whenever this console didn't sell well, and it was not even his fault. It was the marketing team's fault, not even his. The Wii U was absolutely amazing. I bought it because I watched Tri-X play Super Mario Maker. And the moment that I saw that, I realized that I needed to. I bought an entire console just to play that one game.
All of them. And when the Switch was announced with Breath of the Wild, I was beyond excited. Like, very cringely crying at the announcement trailer excited. As a Zelda fan, it was everything I'd ever wanted in a game, and to this day, it is still one of my favorites. That launch brought back so...
See, we're gonna play that soon. I'm gonna try that. I bought both Zeldas and I bought Mario Kart.
Much of the old magic, which is probably why I held on for so long and I even wanted to work for them. Like, genuinely. I applied to corporate Nintendo PR jobs probably 15 to 20 times. I'm not even exaggerating. Back in 2019, I was pursuing PR, and when I got the opportunity to go to E3 that year, the very last E3, by the way, I actually spoke with the Nintendo PR team in person. It was magical. The Nintendo section of the event was so overwhelming and electric, and I remember thinking, this is it. This is what I want, and this is what I want to be a part of. So please hear me out. What we are about to discuss isn't coming from someone who's out to bash Nintendo. This is coming from someone who genuinely, wholeheartedly, even at times very cringely, loved Nintendo and their games, and really believed in what I thought they stood for. But over time, I've started to realize that maybe Nintendo isn't the company I thought they were. What I've seen over the last few years is that my nostalgia goggles have been working overtime, and they've kept me from really seeing the true nature of a company that I once held so dear to my heart. So let's dive in, and let's start.
Hey, can you play Pow World on the Nintendo Switch? No? Huh.
The release of the Switch 2. It's officially out now, and sales are booming. Records are being broken, and over 3 million units were sold worldwide on release day. People are also loving Mario Kart World, and I'm genuinely very happy for them. Yes, the game looks like a lot of fun. I just wish I felt something, because more than anything, I just feel tired. At $450 or $500 if you get it bundled with Mario Kart World, this doesn't feel like a celebration of the next chapter. It feels like Nintendo seeing how far they can stretch our loyalty, how much they can charge us for something that isn't even new, just a little bit newer. And listen, I'm not here to crap on Mario Kart. I actually really like Mario Kart. I do. It's one of those comfort games that's always been there, and it's—
I don't. Mario Kart cannibalized F-Zero, and F-Zero was better in every single way. Mario Kart's for kids.
attached to so many fond memories of playing with friends and family, but even though it looks fun, when that's the flagship title for a brand new console launch, I don't know, I personally just couldn't get behind the hype.
It doesn't matter that much, yeah.
It feels kind of boring, safe, predictable. Nintendo isn't asking, hey, what's possible here? They're asking, what can we get away with? Because $80 for Mario Kart World,
that's big money,
that's not
man.
just a new number. It's a shift in how this industry treats its players.
Yep.
And what surprises me, even though it shouldn't at this point, is that it's Nintendo, of all companies, ushering in this new pricing standard. This wasn't them reluctantly following—
Nintendo had $60 games on Super Nintendo. Nintendo's been, the thing is, Nintendo is like it's like your grandma that bakes you cookies and she's really nice to you and she cares about everything that you care about, but she's also racist. Like, that's it. That's Nintendo, is that they have a lot of really good things, but there's a few of them that are not so great.
A trend that I know was inevitable, but this was them leading the charge.
She has a black cat and it's named...
Setting a precedent, establishing $80 as the new normal, and not with some expansive, genre-pushing new experience, but with an exact game formula that we've literally seen 16 times at this point. And it makes you ask, why? Because meanwhile, I'm looking at games like Helldivers 2, Hi-Fi Rush, Lies of P, Remnant 2, Clair Obscur, Baldur's Gate 3, and so many more. Games that have real creative vision, some with massive campaigns, even some with fleshed out co-op systems, launching at or below $60. And many of these games are taking risks and really pushing boundaries, and somehow they're still finding a way to be more accessible. So when Nintendo drops a new console and leads with yet another Mario Kart at a higher price than ever before, it doesn't feel like they're honoring their legacy. It feels like
it feels like they're cashing in, bro. Like, it does. It absolutely does. Like, I love Nintendo too. Like, I mean, I could tell the same stories that she did, like 100%. But the reality is that it's weird. It's very weird. $80 for Mario Kart.
they're monetizing it. Like they're using it against us. Actually kind of feels like a slap in the face. That stings.
I think it's easy to say it's a non-issue if like it's easy to say it's a non-issue if like money isn't an issue for you, or if you feel like the games are good. But the fact is that like if you compare a lot of like the Switch 2, its release titles with the Switch 1's release titles, or like I go back to, you know, like the GameCube, its release titles, or like, you know, Pikmin and Luigi's Mansion. Like the fact is that it's just it's a pretty weak release, all things considered. Literal remakes being $60, $80. Yeah, that's crazy.
Pretty badly. And yes, to be fair, the Switch 2 is a technical upgrade. 4K visuals, better battery, smoother performance,
From the
more
Switch
storage. It's all technically better on paper, but it doesn't feel like a new era. It seems like a slightly fancier version of something that we already had. And for me personally, this
like
realization of who Nintendo is not like a sudden moment of awakening. I've quietly been stepping back from them for a while now. And not because I stopped.
I think that the Nintendo Switch 2 is probably their least innovative console they've ever made. The Super Nintendo was, at the time, the cutting edge for graphics. The Nintendo 64, in its name, was the fact that it was a 64-bit system, the only one on the market. Then you had the GameCube, which was more experimental, but they did take a few risks, and the games were cheaper than the Xbox and PlayStation alternatives in a lot of cases. And they tried those smaller discs. I would say the GameCube was not great. But then you had the Wii, which was, in my opinion, the most generationally successful console of all time. Maybe, I mean, you could say, like, for outside of gamers, it was the most successful console. Inside of gamers, it was the second most successful console, with the first one being PlayStation 2, in my opinion. And then you go and you look at the Wii U, which was a completely portable console. Insane fucking innovation. The Switch, which was the taking the Wii U and then perfecting it to be a perfect version of itself. And the Switch 2 is just simply the same thing. It's basically a copy-paste. Do you see what I'm saying? Like OG Game Boy trendsetter? Yeah, I don't really feel like the Switch 2 really brings a lot to the table that wasn't already there.
Stopped loving their games.
Glazing Nintendo? Well, no, it's the opposite. I'm contextualizing Nintendo's previous W's over the past 30 years and comparing it to their current, you know, maybe lowercase l. I mean, the Switch 2 isn't awful, right? It's not a bad console, but it's just not something that's innovative in a way that's unique. And also when you have places like Steam, or you have places like, Xbox now that are making their own portable consoles, the portable console selling point no longer exists.
Because I started seeing the patterns, the choices, the shifts. And at this point, it's pretty clear that this Switch 2 release is not just about a new price tag or a genuine attempt at launching something new. It's just another step in the same pattern that's been repeating for years. Back in the day, this used to be the company that took risks, that made
That was my fucking game right there. Oh my God.
Magic, that redefined entire genres and invited us into something truly special. But now, kind of just seems like they're relying on the fact
I have this one. I think I might have this one too, actually. But I know I have this one.
That will show up no matter what, even though they are so often very anti-consumer. It's because they know our nostalgia runs incredibly deep, and the more I've seen it, the harder it has been to unsee. Nintendo,
I think it's not even nostalgia. I think Nintendo is so, like, I think the big problem is that Nintendo is a Japanese company, and a lot of Japanese cultural norms, like, for example, like not giving away games at all, are like, I mean, because this is something like, for example, like, you know, like the Wii, I think it was like the Switch, like Wii Fit or something like that came for free with the Wii, or like maybe the Switch. Reggie was the one that apparently had convinced them of doing that. And so the big problem is that now Wii Sports, yeah, exactly. And they were like, well, why should we give this away for free? Well, there's an investment to that. And Reggie pushed that. He did. And so, like, again, I think this is there's a big cultural clash, too, between the way that Western players see Nintendo and see the way that Nintendo does business and Japanese players do. And that lack of localization or local communication is a huge issue. Sony has overcome that, but Nintendo, I think, hasn't, which is a good and a bad thing. But this is the bad part of it.
I can only describe as weaponized nostalgia. They've turned our childhood memories into a soulless business model. And the part that really hurts is that it works. It worked on me for so long.
Yeah,
I've been the Nintendo fangirl who's bought the remakes, re-releases, and updated ports, even though I knew deep down that what they were offering was not anything new. And
yeah, that's fine. You can be a shit eater. You just have to know that what you're eating isn't chocolate. That's fine. Just never convince yourself it's chocolate.
Looking back on it, I don't know. I guess it was because I didn't feel like I was buying a game. It felt like I was buying a memory. And Nintendo knows that. They know that we remember how it felt to blast through Alien Worlds and Metroid Prime, or how it felt to spend hours raising your perfect Nintendog like it was your actual
Jesus, what a piece of shit.
childhood pet. They know we feel these titles in a way that goes beyond gameplay. And they have perfected the art of re-releasing titles, sometimes only mildly updated, at full price, locking legacy content behind paywalls and subscriptions, and offering nostalgia not as a gift, but as a heartless transaction. And just a quick side note that I found out while I was writing out the video. Do you want to talk about heartless? Because I just found out that Nintendo actually replaced the voice actress for Princess Peach after 18 years. And they didn't even tell her. She found out with the rest of the world when the new Mario Kart game came out. Like, that's actually insane. But anyway.
Jesus. Why? What the fuck happened?
To get back on track,
oh my God.
There's always been a huge difference between celebrating fan love and exploiting it. And for me, it seems like Nintendo has lived long enough to finally see themselves become the villain. So moving on from the Switch to release, at some point, I started looking at how Nintendo treats the people who love their games. And what I found honestly broke my heart a little bit, because Nintendo doesn't just protect its legacy, they police it. Let's start with content creators. This is nothing new. For many years now, Nintendo has been going after them. Streamers, YouTubers, musicians.
Nintendo used to have, and she's new to YouTube, so she might not remember this, but maybe she does. Nintendo used to have a special creator program, and they would take part of your revenue if you make YouTube videos about Nintendo games. And you had to be enrolled in a separate Nintendo creator program, and they only rolled that back maybe like 8 years ago or 7 years ago. Yeah, I couldn't put videos on YouTube. Yeah, I'm telling you, it was crazy.
For doing what?
So they're doing really well now.
Honestly, most other gaming companies celebrate, sharing their love for the brand and its IP. Somehow, I managed to kind of turn a blind eye to most of this until the Point Crow situation. He was a YouTuber who turned a blind eye.
I received copyright takedown on my account, suspended 48 hours, streaming Age of Calamity despite being out in Australia, Japan. I don't think this is really a big deal, personally. Sometimes there's just mistakes that happen, and like people get access to a game early, and it's a mistake with the publisher or a mistake with the advertising agency. This isn't really that big of a deal, and it's happened with a lot of games in the past. Yeah, this happens. But
most of this until the Point Crow situation. He was a YouTuber who was making these really incredible Breath of the Wild mod videos. Fun, creative, and totally original. And then one day, Nintendo claimed and struck 27 videos. No warning, no conversation, just straight up attacked. And it wasn't just his Breath of the Wild mods, it was any content that featured them, including other creators who had collaborated with him. It all got wiped out like a purge. And it made me pause because these weren't leaks and they weren't made to be malicious. I
think this is ridiculous. The idea that they can copyright strike you for modding their game. I think after you mod a game, after you buy a game, you should have the right to mod the game if it's a single player game. With basically no restrictions. Unless you're reselling it, that's your property now. And I think that there needs to be a certain level of consumer protection that exists in order to ensure that that's the case. That's nuts. No, it is. It's totally unfair. Don't agree at all? No, I think that whenever you spend money, if you are spending money for something, you should get something out of the money that you're spending. The reality is that when you take that away from somebody and you say that it doesn't matter whether you're spending money, you're still going to have to follow all of these arbitrary rules that don't make any sense, even after you bought this, there's no reason that we as the public have to put up with this. A lot of consumer protection laws exist right now for unfriendly business practices that companies like this do that serve no purpose other than to inconvenience the consumer and to control the experience beyond what was paid for. The fact is that I think we as consumers get to decide if enough people in America, keep this in mind, if enough people in America and enough people in Europe decide that it's against the law to be able to do this, then it's against the law to be able to do it. There is no reason why we should tolerate this type of behavior. It's outrageous. When you purchase something and you spend your money on it, you're entitled to be able to use that product and that tool for what you decided to pay it with, what you decided to do it with. That's it. So if you're buying a car, somebody else offers you a chip so it only uses 1% gas, 3 speed. Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, it's a car. It's right to repair. Yeah. Asia, though, different ballgame. I don't care what Asia does. Asia can have whatever rules they want. Just because it's an Asian company doesn't mean that they get to enforce Asian laws here in America. That's not how it works. The fact is that this is America, and I think that there should be consumer protections for mods. And if you buy a video game and it's not a multiplayer online video game, you should be able to mod it and do whatever you want with that game, and the publisher and the developer shouldn't be able to do a fucking thing to you because you bought that game and that's your right to do with what you paid your money for. It's outrageous. It's an outrageous overstepping of boundaries. And I don't know why anybody tolerates it at all. Does Nintendo sell a game or a license? They sell a license. They all sell a license. But just because you sell a license doesn't mean you just get to rewrite all of the rules based on that. There are plenty of consumer protections that exist, and also the nature of what a license is defined by the government. So if I ask the government to redefine what a license is, I think that's totally fair because government are the ones that decided what it was to begin with. There's too many rules? Exactly. Yeah, it's too many rules. You shouldn't have that. You should be able to do whatever you want. They do it with physical copies. I disagree about single-player only modding. Okay, well, I mean, I don't know why. I mean, you disagree. Okay, what does that mean? I don't even know why somebody would type that. A major reason this doesn't work for Nintendo is selling a console is near a net loss. It's not in their interest for you to buy a console and no games because you're playing freeware. I'm not talking about anybody... I'm not talking about modding and, like, stealing games. Obviously, pirating games is bad. But the difference is that if you purchase a video game, I think that you should have the right to mod that game with no restrictions. Unless it's a multiplayer online game that interacts with other people, because at that point, you are using Nintendo's servers.
Was just fan content that was made out of love. And Nintendo really cracked down on it like it was a threat. And this was not an isolated case. One that has really stuck with me was Gilvasunner. And if you didn't know, Gilvasunner's channel used to be one of the only places online where you could find full Nintendo soundtracks. For years, Nintendo basically had these locked up very tight unless you were able to purchase a physical CD from Nintendo themselves. They weren't on Spotify, Apple Music, Nintendo's YouTube channel, no official platform to listen to any of it. And Gilva wasn't even trying to profit from this. There were no ads or monetization, just the original music uploaded for fans who wanted to relive the moments those songs came from. It was really a gift to the community. And then it was gone. Nintendo initially sent over 1,300 takedown notices, and after that, it was followed by another 2,200. The entire channel was essentially wiped out, and Gilva closed up shop. And I know this might sound a little bit dramatic, but that was kind of a big turning point for me when it came to how I viewed them. Just a little side note / confession, but as a former Disney adult who has learned the error of her ways, I feel pretty qualified to say this.
Jesus.
Nintendo really is the Disney of gaming. They're wholesome on the surface, very full of magic and memories, but underneath, there's a very quiet,
It's a corporate, yeah.
malicious
Yep.
control. And both
Fucking
companies know
exactly.
how to tug at your childhood heartstrings while handing out copyright strikes and ulterior motives on the side.
Yep.
At the time I was watching this unfold, the more I sat with what happened to Gylfasunner, the more it made me wonder, why is Nintendo's music so locked away to begin with? These soundtracks have some of the most iconic songs in gaming. They were emotional, timeless, and they were very deeply personal for so many of us. And like I said earlier, Animal Crossing Wild World was my comfort game. And yet, at the time, there was basically no way for me to go listen to it legally. It felt like Nintendo had locked away their history in a vault, and they just would not let anyone open it up.
And that's what's so weird to me about this, is that I don't even really think that this serves Nintendo's goals. It doesn't really help Nintendo. It doesn't do anything in Nintendo's favor. It just basically handicaps them, and it makes it more restrictive for no reason.
There, I started noticing so many other examples. Fan games getting shut down, community passion projects being wiped out, and listen, I get it, IP protection is legally within their right. But it all just felt like they were going out of their way to crack down on this, acting very aggressive.
By the way, I don't think that it is. I think that if you mod a video game, you should be able to do that. That's not within their right. You bought the game, you should do whatever you want with it.
Cold and even heartless, especially when you look around at many other companies, Sega, Capcom, Xbox, PlayStation, even some indie studios, and you see them amplifying creators, lifting them up.
It's abusive IP. IP is it's a concept. It's an abstract concept that's defined by people and governments. I'm just saying to redefine the concept. I don't like the way the concept is currently identified and defined. I think that it's unfair. And so I think they should redefine it. It's very simple.
Letting the fans be a part of the legacy, but Nintendo doesn't really do that. They continue.
Also, so another reason why, I just want to follow that up a little bit more. The reason why I'm okay with that is because people are doing this without malicious intent. These are not people that are doing this in order to hurt the game. They're not trying to subvert spending money on the game. They're not trying to steal a product. They're just simply trying to enjoy the game in a different way. And so when I look at should something be allowed or not, I think about, is the person that's asking for it to be allowed acting in good faith? And I think in terms of Nintendo, most of the people that are trying to ask for a little bit more, control here are acting in good faith.
To pull the plug again and again, and over time I started wondering if maybe I had just been giving them the benefit of the doubt simply because I grew up loving them. So at this point, after the Gylfasunner takedown, I had already started to feel uneasy. The creator takedowns, the fan projects, the legacy content, it was all feeling a lot more controlling than caring. But the moment that truly stopped me in my tracks was when I heard the story of Gary Bowser. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know about any of this until—
How is it that there's two people with the last name Bowser? I've never heard anybody else with the last name of Bowser. And there's, I think, Gary Bowser and Doug Bowser that are both involved with Nintendo. It's like, this is the kind of shit that makes me believe that we're living in a simulation.
I listened to an episode of Darknet Diaries, which, by the way, Jack does an incredible job explaining all of this. I'll link it in the description for you. Now, I obviously knew at this point Nintendo could be very protective of their IP, but this was on a whole other level. Gary was a part of a group called Team Executor, and what they did was build and sell mod chips, little pieces of hardware that you could install in your Nintendo consoles to run homebrew apps, custom firmware, and yes, pirated games. But people also use those mods for stuff that wasn't necessarily piracy. They used it to run backups of games they already owned.
I have no problem with them shutting down piracy stuff. I don't. And I have no issue with that at all. I think that a company should be able to do whatever they want to shut down piracy, because it's stealing and it's again, malicious intent.
Or just experiment with the system.
But obviously they went way farther than that, which is why it's bad. But I'm just saying, at a baseline, piracy is not something that I think that any company should have to tolerate. It's stealing. Buying is not owning. Yes, and piracy is not stealing. It's piracy. It's a different term. This like Reddit take that you have is just retarded. It's a retarded, haha, gotcha, without thinking about it word. You change, man? No, I've said this for forever. I've always been against piracy. I've always been against... Actually, I'm not even against piracy. Like, I've pirated things. But what I am against is the idea that companies shouldn't be able to protect themselves from piracy. Because I think that that's malicious.
Use things that were really never going to be available through Nintendo directly. Gary essentially became the fall guy for the entire organization, and Nintendo came down on him in a way that was very extreme. In 2020, Gary was arrested at gunpoint in the Dominican Republic and extradited to the US. By 2022,
didn't Nintendo literally use the Pinkertons? Let me see if I can figure this out. No, it was Wizards of the Coast. Okay, never mind. All right, yeah, okay.
He'd been sentenced to 3 years in prison and ordered to pay $14.5 million in damages, $4.5 million in restitution, and then another $10 million from a civil suit. And after he got out early, he still owed all of it. And he started paying Nintendo back 25 to 30% of his monthly income, which at one point was just $25 a month from his prison library job. He'll basically be paying them for the rest of his life. When I heard that, my stomach dropped. I genuinely felt heartbroken for him. Yes, what he and the rest of the team were doing was illegal, and they did profit off of it, but Gary was just one man. And are we really saying the punishment fits the crime here? Because whatever legal lines were crossed, this felt less like justice and more like hatred and wrath. And not just for what he did, but for daring to even touch Nintendo's closed system. And the part that really got me with this is Nintendo tried to get Sony and Microsoft to back them up here, to join the lawsuit and make it a united front against piracy. Both companies said no. Both Sony and Xbox, billion-dollar publishers in their own right, refused to be a part of it. Even they seemed to think that it was too far. And again, I am not here to outright defend piracy, really. There's a whole conversation to be had about access, preservation, and ethics.
I think that it's very simple. If you can buy the product from the developer, then piracy is not ethical. If you can't buy the product from the developer, then piracy is ethical. So, for example, if there's a video game that isn't offered by a publisher, then it's completely okay for you to pirate it or to, to emulate it. But if you are using piracy as a market replacement for actually buying a game, then you are acting in bad faith.
But this felt incredibly cruel and predatory.
Yes,
Nintendo did not just want to stop Gary from what he was doing. They wanted to make him an example. And for me, this was the defining moment when I knew Nintendo was no longer the company that I had loved for decades. And if you thought Gary Bowser's case was just a one-off or a legal overreach in a rare situation, it wasn't. Because not long after that, Nintendo set its sights on something much bigger and arguably much more telling. You might have already guessed it, but I'm talking about Palworld. You probably remember when it blew up. A very weird...
Bro, this is so embarrassing.
Chaotic blend of Pokemon-style creature collecting and open-world survival mechanics. It was very messy, it was wild, but it was so much fun. People were very obsessed, myself included. And yes, come on, it clearly was inspired by Pokemon. That's not a secret.
Everybody knows that. If you think Palworld wasn't inspired by Pokemon and copy-pasted from Pokemon, look at Anubis and Lucario. Bro, like, look at Lugia and Jet Dragon. Like, come on, what are we talking about?
You could throw a spear, you could collect little pals, you ride them, you battle them. It was Pokemon adjacent,
yes, one-to-one.
But here's the thing.
Blatant.
It wasn't a copy. The characters were different.
Some
the
of
art
them
direction,
That's
tone,
true.
many mechanics were different. It took a very familiar genre and gave it a bold, slightly unhinged twist. And for the first time in years, fans were saying, why doesn't Nintendo try stuff like this? And
it's also, keep in mind that there's no unique creativity that Nintendo put into Pokemon either. If you look at Dragon Quest that predates Pokemon, a lot of things in Pokemon were also in Dragon Quest. So it's not like, oh wow, they came up with all these unique, amazing things and like nobody ever thought of this. But obviously, like, you know, Pokemon copied Dragon Quest, Palworld copied Pokemon. Both of these things are true.
taking that feedback in stride. Instead of rising to the challenge, listening, learning, evolving, Nintendo did what they've been doing for a while now.
Yes.
They sued. Together with the Pokemon Company, they filed a patent infringement lawsuit against the Palworld dev team. Not over character design, surprisingly, not even over branding, but over mechanics. Things like throwing a Pal Spear to catch creatures, using them in combat, riding them across the world. And because of all of this, the Palworld team had to actually go in and change all of those features. They stripped out mechanics that players loved.
You now can no longer throw your... Remember how in Palworld you would throw your ball at what you wanted the Pal to attack? And then it would automatically start on aggressive? They got rid of that feature. You can't do that anymore.
Not because they were unethical, but because they simply couldn't defend themselves against a legal juggernaut. And just like with the Gary Bowser case, Nintendo tried to bring...
Nintendo has never lost a legal case that they have initiated.
Their companies into the fight. Sony and Microsoft were purportedly approached to back them again.
Which, keep in mind, Palworld is made by Pocket Pair, and Pocket Pair, or whatever owns them, is a Japanese company.
Here, and again, they declined. They did not want to be a part of it. And all of this says
they literally got them by the balls.
No, yes, you're right. Nintendo. A wake-up call, an opportunity for them to ask, what is it that people are responding to? Why are they so excited about this? What can we learn from this? But instead of innovation, they chose...
Well, I think that there's probably, like, what I believe, this is my personal belief, is that I bet there were so many guys that worked on the marketing department or the development team or on the Pokemon team at Nintendo that the moment that Palworld came out and saw so much success, they were probably saying, bro, see, I told you they'd buy this. I told you they wanted this. Why didn't you guys listen to me? I guarantee you they were saying, see, I knew this was what they wanted. Why didn't they do this? And so, yeah, I told you, yeah, I think internally Nintendo probably did pick Palworld and respect it. But obviously they're not going to do that legally.
Litigation. And to me, it was not a stand for creativity or IP protection. The Pokemon formula has been around for literally 30 years. We all know what it is and where it comes from. And Palworld was not going to change that. No. This was Nintendo being a bully and swinging at anything that threatened the comfort of their complacency. They had an opportunity to grow, to evolve, to take advantage of someone already laying the groundwork for them, but instead, they chose violence. And after everything, the creator takedowns, the lawsuits, the silencing of innovation, you think maybe Nintendo would at least try to get one thing right. Their legacy. I remember when Nintendo Online was first announced. It sounded like such a win, a way to legally revisit classic titles, play old favorites, dive back into the library that built up this brand. And at first, I was so hopeful. But the reality has been frustrating at best. Games get added randomly. Some months it's not much. Other months it's one obscure NES title.
There's just too many subscription services nowadays. It's just, people are getting eaten alive. Like most people, I bet, probably have half a dozen subscriptions to things that are non-essential. Like besides like your phone payment, there's so many of these now. It's nuts. Boiling Frog, yeah, it's like they're just taking little bites out of you, little things. Nintendo loses legal battle against a supermarket named Super Mario. Fuck them. That's what they get.
Asked for. Entire consoles like Game Boy Advance or N64 still feel incomplete, and sometimes titles will just disappear without warning or explanation. They're just gone. And now, with the launch of the Switch 2, I thought maybe they would just try to clean things up a bit. GameCube has finally joined the retro lineup, which is very awesome, but they only added 3 games at launch. Wind Waker.
What? That's it? I mean, I had all 3 of these games, but still.
Soul Calibur 2 and F-Zero GX.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that's a cool trio, I guess, but it's also pretty bare bones for a console with so many legendary titles. And yeah, I know more are coming, but why launch with so few? Why not take the easy win here and give your fans what they've been begging you for years? Beyond the catalog, the performance isn't always there either. Sometimes there's lag, some games have awkward control schemes, others don't support cloud saves. It doesn't really feel like a premium service. It feels like something Nintendo begrudgingly maintains, and definitely not something that they can be proud of. The thing is I've always wanted to support something like this. I actually am very happy to pay to play these games legally.
See, there's a thing that people might not remember about Nintendo, is that back in the day, you used to be able to call the Nintendo hotline, and it didn't matter if you had an issue with Super Ghosts and Ghouls, Super Mario, your power converter, or anything. Nintendo would sit down with you and figure it out with you, and they would solve your fucking problem. You could call in the year 2008, and you could say, my Super Nintendo isn't turning on. And they would say, okay, sir, let me reassign you. And then there would be some fucking guy, some wizard, that would sit down with you and help you fix your Super fucking Nintendo. Not the same company? Hey. But remember that? Yeah, that's right.
I want to revisit the titles that shaped me in a clean, easy way.
Oh, yes, they had the video. I forgot all about the video, yes.
But Nintendo has made it so hard. It's like they're sitting on this treasure trove of nostalgia, this very beautiful, powerful legacy, and instead of sharing it or celebrating it with us, they keep it to themselves and withhold it. They kind of hold it over us like drugs, honestly, banking on the fact that we'll continue to play the part of the willing addicts who will be so happy for even the tiniest drop. It really is.
I don't understand Nintendo's strategy in general, because I think that they sabotage themselves. Like, for example, why can't you make a version of Armored Core that is called Star Fox? Why not? That would be really cool. Why have you discontinued so many super successful franchises? Why is every Pokemon game bad? Why is this? And it is honestly like just a quality, it's a quality question that I have. Like and Nintendo can apologize for this very easily. All they need to do is they need to commission or pay From Software to make the next Legend of Zelda. That's all they need to do. And say, look at Link to the Past and do this. That's all. Apology will be completely accepted. All of these DMCAs, totally understandable. As shit happens, right? That's all they need to do. Look at that and Twilight Princess.
Heartbreaking, but at this point, I'm not even really mad about it. I'm just tired and maybe still a little bit sad. Now, again, to be clear, this video is not meant to shame anybody. If you bought the Switch 2 or you're a part of Nintendo Online and you're loving it, I think that's great, truly. I am not here to steal joy away from anyone.
3 games
this video really is just to talk about how I can't ignore how much my own relationship with Nintendo has changed over the years. And I don't love them anymore. Not the company, not like I used to. And that's difficult to say out loud because I grew up on these games. I spent summers chasing stars in Mario 64, winters decorating my Animal Crossing home, racing my siblings in Mario Kart, riding Epona across Hyrule Field like it was the most magical thing in the world. And for me, these were not just games. They were a part of my childhood. And that's why all of this hurts so much, because the company that once led with a full heart and love for gaming feels like it's running on autopilot, giving us the
they just suck. Like, I mean, the games suck. Like, they make some good games, but like a lot of them are, I think, kind of mediocre. They should be way better than they are.
Absolute bare minimum. Comfortable, safe, lazy, greedy. We're getting less and paying more. And look, the industry as a whole is a bit of a mess right now, but it's still fair for us to ask for better, to feel valued as customers, to want these companies to care. And for a long time, I really believed that Nintendo did, that they were different, that they stood for something. But now
I'm not like those other companies.
Hard to see how that could still be true. I always joke that my relationship with Nintendo is super toxic because even after all of this, even after how I've seen how they treat their consumers and fans, part of me still hopes that they'll change. Because
to me, I believe that I have totally transcended this toxic relationship that I have with video games and with video game companies. And I did it with WoW. I used to hope so much. I used to get mad. I would get mad reading patch notes in WoW. Now it's just like, oh, you guys did something stupid? Well, that's too bad. I'm going to go do something else. And like, that's the way I feel now. Is that when I see something like even Night Rain, like I wasn't particularly, I didn't like the way Night Rain was. Like there were some good things about it, but it just really wasn't for me. And I didn't get mad at From Software. I'm like, oh, okay, this one's not really for me. I'll hopefully play the next one and it'll be good. And I've totally disconnected from any degree, and I've tried to, any degree of brand loyalty. Like, if the last game was good, then I hope this game's going to be good. If it's not, well, then that's too bad, right? And then maybe I'll play something else or whatever. And like I did that with Zenless Zone Zero too. Like I went and you'd be the last person playing. You've come a long way. Everybody's saying that I'd be the last person playing WoW. Well, I still love WoW. I mean, I do. I just haven't really played it recently because I just haven't really felt like it. And like it's the same with Nintendo. Like if they bring out a good Legend of Zelda game, you guys have to understand that this is the level of my resolve. When I had Breath of the Wild come out and they said it was 30 FPS, I said, okay, I'm going to wait for it to come out in 60 FPS. I just bought Breath of the Wild for 60 FPS on the Switch too, and I'll be playing it for the first time soon. Yep. I'll just wait. That's okay. They'll figure it out. Not a big deal.
They could. It really would be so
Yep.
easy. If they wanted to, they could be the company that supports creators instead of silencing them, shares their legacy instead of locking it away, prioritizes joy over control, and evolves instead of punishing innovation. I really would love nothing more than to fall back in love with them. But right now, it just seems like Nintendo is going to keep being Nintendo. Just very stuck
Yeah, I'll stream the
and
beginning.
too happy
sure.
to stay that way. The love that I once had for them was so real and the magic really mattered. But the company behind that magic, it feels further away than
It's
ever.
not there
If
anymore.
you
It's
made
a
it to the
different
end of
game.
this video, seriously,
different
thank
company.
you so much. And I would love to hear your story. What made you fall in love with Nintendo? Are you still in love with them? Or have you also had a bit of a breakup with them like me? Let me know in the comments. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.
I just feel like, especially like if you go back and you look at like the Super Nintendo and the like N64, those games were like generationally insanely good. This is a great video, and I think that she represents. There's a video. Give it a like. I definitely feel that way. And I link the video. Yeah, there you go. By the way, what's this here? Let me go back. I'll look at it. By the way, Breath of the Wild is more a Souls-like game than you can imagine. Yeah, I heard about that a little bit. And Boohoo Nintendo's ability, her emotional manipulation is tiring. Yeah, but so is Nintendo's, and that's what she's talking about.